So, hey guys, today we're gonna do a little bit of talking about game balance. So, as we all know by now, surely, Altergeist, not that great of a deck, but Altergeist isn't the only deck that's kind of left by the wayside and kind of just bad, mid, or something like that. And usually, decks like this are still playable because they can still go first pretty well, and the going first player just has essentially an overwhelming advantage. So right now with all the new decks, their going first is just kind of becoming dumber and dumber, right? So with you Bell, uh, unless you draw something like maybe a Droll or a Shifter, Bell just goes pretty hard and can just eat hand traps for breakfast. It's just like you ash this. There was no point. A singular ash would have made a difference against the deck here. And then if we were instead to have like Imperm, there's no point where Imperm does anything. Except maybe like Imperm to stop like your opponent from adding maybe a Sharfara, but that only stops the trap from being grabbed, and then your opponent just still makes the Unchained Link 2 using the Yama instead because Yama counts for that. And you're kind of forced to deal with that, I guess. So essentially, new decks, they're going first is only going to be better and better for whatever reason. Maybe they're more hand trip resistant, maybe they're going their turn two, like they will wipe your opponent's like e- efforts to set up a board or break their board. Could be something like that. Essentially, uh, with that, does that not mean that we'll need stronger going second cards? But those stronger going second cards will just completely wipe off the face of the earth and obliterate essentially all of the decks that are much worse to the point where they might not even be that playable going first. And that's kind of what I'm worried about, honestly, a bit. So I like to play a few decks that are, let's say, not the best. So if I play like Punk Therion, I require a crap ton of engine for this. And well, if I start resolving these cards and I get hit by, I don't know, like a shifter, I am cooked already, right? But if I were going second, I'm also still not having that great of a time. So would the idea be the game would get also potentially get more sacky then if there were just some like very powerful generic going second cards, that would be not great. So my assumption then is that instead of getting generic cards, we might get more like board breakery, like in archetype cards. So think like Makako, and I don't know exactly what Tenpai does, but I'm going to assume it also has cards in the same way like Makako does to help you break boards that are related to their archetype, so archetypal ones. So it's very hard to defend against those kind of like our board or do things to our opponent when they have a deck like that. So that means going first, we won't be able to deal with the going second decks. So, like, in the slightest, if we're playing some older archetypes, which sucks, and then if we are going going second, the other decks, the stronger ones, like let's say Yubel, for example, we don't really have a good way to interrupt with our hand traps, and our going second options are like not very great. So, for example, with Punk, if I normal summon Xiamen and you remove the Xiamen, most hands I will not be able to play if you just remove the Xiamen. The only extenders I really have are Foxy and Emergency Teleport for the most part. Aside from that, I would need even more engine. So like Deer Note potentially, then I might be able to still play. But it's not going to do much because you set a full end board. So uh, if we were against Unchained, for example, you link off whatever I made. You can Ibly lock me, which is hard to break through, even if you don't Ibly lock me, it's still like going to be pain and suffering, right? And that applies to like essentially all of the worst decks out there, like I don't know, Subterror, Altergeist, uh, Generator, um, Ice Barrier, and all of those essentially just I would say well balanced decks and not like as strong as some uh more modern archetypes. So the only way we could really get these guys to keep up is by probably printing like some decent support for like all of these archetypes. But there's just so many archetypes. Is that even really feasible? I guess if we wait long enough, we might get enough support, you know, to have more playable decks like Pure Dragoonity. Yeah, that deck for sure can go second, right, guys? No, no, it can't. That was a joke. But yeah, that is mostly a going first deck, and it can gas through like a lot of things, honestly, like a reasonable amount of hand traps. Dragon Link can also like somewhat reasonably do that, but if we go to like an even worse deck than some of these guys, which I would argue has not gotten any decent support in a long as well. Zombie World, uh, you have like Uni Zombie as your starter. You have like essentially, I guess, six starters then, and then if you get rid of Uni Zombie, there's no gameplay anymore, essentially. And that is Zombie World in a nutshell. Very nice. Well, not really, but yeah, not much going on with that. So going forward, are we going to like maybe be getting more like archetypal support? Like we would need a large amount to be able to keep up. Like if we look at Altergeist, for example, right now, that I don't think there is a single good matchup for Altergeist, assuming we are going second with the Geist. Uh, the only thing we could hope for is this quote unquote specific combo where we open like multi-faker with infinite impermanence. Evenly matched actually does not quite do it, unfortunately, because if our opponent has what's called the Ibli lock, then we're screwed. That or the evenly just isn't that effective against their deck. Like Fire King, Snake Eye, Fire King, Snake Eye. Uh, a lot of decks actually can just tank the evenly now, and then well, multi faker is probably just not enough after this point. And also, you don't have good consistency for this, anyways. So could increase the copies of Multifaker, but Multifaker is realistically more of an extender than a starter, so it doesn't even matter. But in this case, this is barely combo because we opened three Altergeist names, and we're just going to ignore the Prosperity. And here we have no combo. The last few hands, no combo. This potentially combo. Whoa. But the downside to this hand is if our opponent has Ash Blossom Jura Spring, the only interruption we have is actually wait, we have Pukri. No, we're fine actually, because we can link off into Hexia here. If we did not have the Pukri, we would have to link off for Link Rebo, and then if this gets ashed, we can't even activate Protocol, so we only have the Infinite Impermanence. So yeah, that is to simply say not great. And then uh, this somehow becomes more of a combo deck than controlled deck. Honestly, that's one way I put it, but it also has bad consistency and the inability to utilize a lot of traps because they're simply, I would say, not that great with multi-faker. So that's a whole different conversation. But the power creep is real, you know. And the thing is that right now with how the game is, just in general, the going first player just has so much advantage over the going second player. Makes you really wonder if there's anything we can do for the going second player, because if we make too good of going second cards, it just like makes a crap ton of decks just like unplayable because their main advantage is being able to go first and set up something. And they might not even be able to do it well, but that's in general what we're hoping to do here. So yeah, I just have no clue how we could possibly uh, balance the game going forward. But I mean, Konami surely has a plan, right? That's just what we have to assume, right? So I'm very curious as to what Konami will do, considering, you know, if going first is too good, going second feels like horrible to play. So why shouldn't I just give up immediately if I lose the coin flip, regardless of what I'm playing? Because going first just has too many advantages. And then going second, you have so many disadvantages, but if we flip it the other way around, it's like uh a lot less decks are designed for going second than going first. So if going second becomes better than going first, just in general, then it essentially kills off even more decks than if going first was good, right? And it's very hard to like balance the two. So maybe if we got some generic extenders or something, would that be a good play? But then no, going first is still too strong because we can stop any extenders from activating with like an Ibli, for example. So that gets pretty dicey pretty fast. And that just means we could transition to even more broken like going first endboards and stuff. And that means more engine, less hand traps, and it just feels like more coin flip reliant. But just in general, the game feeling sacky is something I dislike. Like if my opponent sacks me with a dumbass one of, that's not fun. If my opponent cannot play completely because of whatever reason, that's not necessarily fun for the opponent as well. So yeah, right now the game is still like in a playable state at least, but I don't know how the game will be in like a year or two or maybe three. But a lot of things are probably going to change by then, and I am curious as to what will change. Because right now, if we look at hand traps already, they're falling off. So I'll just list all the ones that have fallen off right now. So we have Nibiru, we have Ash Blossom Joe Spring, Effect Veiler, Infinite Impermanence. All of those are much worse right now. Because Ash Blossom Joe Spring, because of how consistent engines are and how they lack choke points, you kind of just have to like pray with your Ash Blossom Joe Spring that your opponent did not open like too many cards. Or if your opponent, for example, is playing Super Heavy Samurai, this card is completely worthless. That does literally nothing. So normal summon Soul Piercer, link off Soul Piercer. Okay, that is the only time you have to Ash Blossom Joy Spring really, because uh any Ash Blossom you do after this point is worthless. Great. And then we have Infinite Impermanence. What exactly are we imperming here? There is nothing to imperm. Oh joy. And a lot of things can dodge the targeting of infinite impermanence for no reason, or they just do not care. For example, with Yubel, we just simply have opening of the Spirit Gates. So if you have opening of the Spirit Gates, the infinite impermanence does realistically nothing. If our opponent has some extenders, it also did one thing actually. It probably trades for like one interaction. That's about what it does. It removes one interaction from the end board. In which case, you might have been better off holding this for Apollosa to take like 4 off their end board, which is helpful, I suppose. But yeah, that's not great. And then even some board breakers are falling off. So before evenly like killed off like 90% of decks, you just get hit by evenly. You have a bad time basically, right? So now with evenly, uh, against certain decks, it just takes a few interactions off of our opponent's end board, or it does not much. So against Yubel, if they set up Ibli, not even activatable. If they don't set up Ibli, they can still retain Apollosa and the Unchained Link too. Unchained Soul of Rage. So they can keep this by using the effect to pop Unchained Soul of Rage plus one of their own cards. And they can do this because it allows you to destroy one card on the field, not your opponent's card. So, yeah, you get both, I guess. So, this can link off a guy and then make SP, and then Apollosa is Apollosa. You can't even run over it because no battle phase anymore because you activate it evenly. So, board breakers, if we were to grab like Raigeki, it's like kind of the same deal, I suppose. But I think Raigeki probably takes out more things on that board, but of course, like we have hand trap still, and this is like a 1 or 2 card combo to set this up, the Yubel end board. So that is no bueno, I would say. So pretty miserable. And that's all I really have to say here. The power creep and what happens going forward, not 100% sure if like going first decks will still be as prominent or going second decks will just uh be very strong. And going second decks are it just feels pretty bad to play against them to an extent. So with Numeron as the example, like what is the best way to play against Numeron? Well, assuming we are going first, we simply do nothing and hope they can't kill us and then kill them the next turn. If we are going second into them, their deck does like essentially nothing and they just auto lose. So that's also not exactly fun because there's not much of a duel to be had. We can literally just summon like a few guys, run over our opponent's life points, and it will be the game. Yeah. So that I think the way to really go forward is to probably print some interesting effects to really keep the game kind of like fresh and just well give players some more like options to play the game in different ways than we have right now. So, well, I guess I can save some of them for a different video, but just in general, with for example, Blackwing, I really like how we have some archetypal like effects that are only usable pretty much because we are playing Blackwing. So with Blackwing, we have Sharnga, which we can use to pop, and this is just in the graveyard. And then we have Chinook, which we can use as a monster negate that also works in the damage step. So that I think is pretty cool, like that kind of thing. And uh, the way these guys are archetypal, pretty neat. So this technically only requires you to control a synchro monster. So if we controlled uh, I believe, let's see, a Dark Synchro. So if we have just a single Disbatter, we can still activate Chinook, but we do need to send Blackwing Synchro monsters or a Blackwing Dragon from our extra deck to the graveyard. So not really playable outside of Blackwing for the most part. I mean, you could if you're a real psycho, but whatever. Then we have Sharnga, which requires us to control a Blackwing monster to do the effective pop, and it is once per duel. So pretty cool in that regard, I think, right? And this gives you like more ways to interact if someone drops something like a Dark Ruler no more or Forbidden Droplet on you, right? Which is cool, and our opponent will still get like decent mileage from activating Droplet or Dark Ruler no more to some extent. Not so much against Blackwing because there is actually a Blackwing play to kind of like negate either a single Dark Ruler no more or Droplet, so that isn't necessarily the greatest play. But if you did just use some kind of board breaker immediately, like Raigeki actually does work unless your opponent for some reason plays around it, right? Uh, well, if we do like Raigeki Droplet, right, that does wipe most of the board, but there's still follow up, which is just fine in this case, I think, right? But you know, as the going second player, also having to play against that's a bit rough. I have very rarely seen anyone uh, beat the Blackwing inboard without Super Poly. It's just not something that easily happens. Or I guess Fallen of Albaz, if you set Fallen of Albaz and then make Alba Lenatus, or activate Super Poly to Super Poly away like the entirety of the board. That's the only time I really see this board get beaten. And that's about it. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. And hopefully the game doesn't like just get bad and become like unenjoyable. That's kind of what we're hoping for here. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.